Um, the reality is that your subconscious mind, if you're not aware of this, or maybe you are and you'll hear it again, it'll stick into your subconscious even better, is running most of your life. 94% of what you're doing is subconscious, which feeding you, dressing you, tying your shoelaces, if in fact you are wearing shoelaces, some of you aren't, I'm looking, taking you to the restroom, getting you up in the morning, putting you to bed at night, walking you down the block, driving your car, I think I just said. All of that stuff is subconscious automatic behavior. And for a lot of us, we're just functioning as if on automatic pilot. Now, we don't like to pretend that we're little Vulcans on Star Trek. Everything is logical and we're going to... And while that sounds like Nixon, I don't know, but everything is logical and... We're going, Nixon is a Vulcan. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Calling me a crook is illogical. Anyway, the reality is that we're all a lot more on automatic pilot than we think we are. And yet, there are certain key elements to the subconscious mind that most of us are not dealing with when we're working with people or if we're working in our own lives. Your subconscious works automatically. It interprets everything literally. It is childlike in its understandings and perceptions. Many of you are taking notes, I'll slow down. I'm from New York, sorry. And it doesn't really have a wonderful grasp of negative words. So when I've worked doing sessions in hypnosis with couples, Richard had covered this earlier, who's auditory, who's visual, who's kinesthetic. You'll sit, I usually do 2 sessions with them, and I do very high impact work usually. So I'll put the 2 of them on a love seat, 2 cushions, and they're sitting on the first session as far apart as 2 human beings can sit on a love seat, Not much love there, And you'll start hearing things like, he never listens to anything that I say. She never sees my point of view. So you have to teach them on a conscious level and a subconscious level to communicate in the other person's language base. And realize that the answers that they're seeking are always inside of them somewhere. No matter how far into denial you actually are, the answers are inside of you. The subconscious also, when a person is in a trance state, in hypnosis for example, or in a deep state of relaxation, or sitting there glassy-eyed talking to you back, or listening to you in a glassy-eyed state, or if you have kids and they're sitting there, did you clean your room? Yeah. Recently? Yeah. An hour ago when I told you to? No. They're interpreting what you're saying literally, and they're not understanding the negative words. So some years ago on bumper stickers, it used to read, "Don't drive drunk." You've seen those, right? On the car, "Don't drive drunk." And now I'm beginning to see, more or less in the last couple of years, "Drive sober." Ask for what you do want rather than what you don't want. That works well if you're coordinating a corporate program also. When you're on the phone with somebody and you're setting up a corporate program, ask for what you do want and not for what you don't want. I would really hate it if you gave me a microphone with a wire on it. No. I must have, for safety issues, a cordless microphone. Wireless microphone. Oh, do you really need one of those? Yes. If you don't have one, I'll bring one, or I'll get one, or we'll rent one. But yes, I must have that. I don't like wires to trip over, especially if I'm the one falling down. Same thing with a stage show. We have it all set up for you. And don't assume because they're jollying you along that they are working within the same brain pattern as you are. I did a show, I was just telling somebody a little while ago, I did a show a couple of months ago, I think it was June, in New Jersey. I said, do we have sound? Absolutely, we have a professional DJ. Wireless handheld mic? Absolutely no problem. What kind of people are going to be there? Oh, friends and family, you're just going to love them. I show up, half the people don't speak English, which would be difficult in a stage show or in a clinical session of any kind. And he hands me a microphone that dies 2 routines into the show. So I hand them the microphone to the crowd, back to the DJ, and I'm trying to explain this in English and in Spanish to some degree. And they're sending it back, and it's still dead. And finally, after the 5th pass back and forth, the DJ looks at me and goes, and there's 150, 200 people under a tent. There's a barbecue, there's a fan on top of the tent blowing barbecue smoke in my face. Balloons next to the fan banging me in the head. And what do? A lot of hypnotists who have just walked out of there. For me, personal empowerment has to do with rising to the occasion. For the crazier the situation is around me, the mightier I become. And that's kind of what you guys did last night. What I kind of did coming in here late, walking on hot coals. My mother was very proud. I called her up. She said, I turned my back on you for a moment, just like a kid, you're into mischief. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that later on in my life. A lot. But the reality is, it's like I was saying to somebody last night. It might have been you. I don't remember who I said this to. But in my head, I am constantly, whether it's a workshop program, such as this, since I didn't really prepare this, just off the top of my head, or a show, or a corporate program, I'm thrown into situations I don't necessarily expect. And because of that, the greater the challenge, the mightier I become. And that's something I say to myself, like the fire last night. The fire is nothing, I am mighty. I mentioned to Charles earlier, there's a line from the movie Kill Bill where Uma Thurman gets dropped off to learn martial arts from the cruel tutelage of Pai Mei, actually is what the scene is called. And this martial arts master tells her, your hand should not fear the wood should fear your hand. And I learned that when I came in here yesterday. So now the wood is frightened on that back table over there, and I feel really good about it, okay? But the reality is personal empowerment resides within the individual, and the idea is to get that subconscious mind to rise up and become mighty. Because inside of all of us is a mighty hero. Most people you're going to be dealing with in session work or in anything that you do are coming from a place where they've gotten themselves down to this small from negative thinking. Do not try that at home. I'm a highly trained professional. Okay. But most people think of themselves because they continually do a process I call disasterizing. What if it's this? What if it's worse than this? What if it's 10 times worse than that? And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And people are coming from this place of high negativity and fear and doubt and guilt and upsetment and what if. That's why public speaking is the #1 fear every year. I think death came in 5th this time around in the survey that they do. So people would rather be dead than doing what I'm doing right now. Thank you very much.
You're mighty.
Yes. Yeah. But the crazier the situation, the mightier I become. How does that work for me? Well, I got hired one time to do a show in front of 8,000 to 9,000 people in a sold-out baseball stadium. Can you hypnotize these people? Yes. In the green room first. I'm not going to be doing a 20-minute induction when you don't give me 20 minutes to do that. And I just decided I was bigger than those 8,000 to 9,000 people. In my head, I became the overwhelming force. And once you decide, as what you've learned here from what I've already experienced with you guys, that you decide you are the overwhelming force, you are the mighty one. This stuff that's going on in your life, whatever it is, or whatever these challenges you've recently undergone or about, are nothing compared to the mighty power inside of you. You can do anything. You hear these stories about grandmothers, 90 pounds, 80 pounds, lifting a car off a child. Inside of all of us, that mighty inner hero part of us is fully capable of doing great and amazingly powerful things. And the idea when you're doing anything in your life, when you're getting jazzed up to do something, a presentation, a challenging session, is to rise up and become mightier than the situation around you at all times. And realize that you are not this big. You are bigger than anything you will encounter in your life. Now, I'm from New York. When I've done that in private session work, what do I hear from people? What if they have a gun? Been there and done that. Look, no bullet holes. My mother was quite proud, by the way, of that. What if they have a knife? Yeah, what if they have a nuclear weapon? I mean, that's the one thing I haven't really faced down yet. But I mean, I've had knives. I've seen that happen. I have used hypnotic technique a couple of times to actually save my life. Give you a quick example. People say, do you actually live this stuff? Yeah, I do, every day of my life. One day, when I lived before I had this house, I was going uptown Manhattan on the subway to help a woman lose weight. And from this session, with the recording I made for her as a reinforcement, over the course of some months, she lost 45 pounds or so. I think it was 48, actually. and she was a nurse. And she said, I can't leave my house, something, you have to come up here, can you do an in-home session? And I said, sure, I'll do that. So I got on the subway. I get on the subway, and there's a man who's obviously got psychiatric problems on the subway, and there's these three business ladies in like little short dresses and little briefcases, and sitting there, and he's singing off key into their faces to terrify these women. And he's wearing an army combat field jacket, or whatever they call that, it's about this long. And he's singing la 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 off key, you know, that really got me, the off key part. So I stepped between him and the women. Now he's following me. Here's where you learn too much about my life. I went deaf in my left ear in college, actually high school. I don't hear so good on this side. So he decides to walk next to me, singing into my bad ear. I can't hear what he's doing anyway. Which is good if you have an annoying person in your life. You just put him on this side. Years ago, I was driving around Ireland while I was still married. I had British side steering. I opened the window. She was over here. I couldn't hear a thing. It was great. I enjoyed that trip. Wonderful. Anyway, the reality is he's singing off key into my not so great ear, and he then steps around in front of me, and he opens up the jacket. He's got a gun jammed in the waistband of his pants, and he pulls out a gun and he says, "What's the matter, man? Don't you like my singing?" Now I got a gun aimed at me at this point. I said, I got into a real focus moment like last night. I don't know how you guys were mentally with that, but I was just in the zone, right in the moment. And I said to him, no, not when it's meant to terrify people, not when it's meant to abuse other people. So he looks at me, pulls the hammer back on the gun. He says, well, if you don't like my singing, man, you can go to hell. In that moment, I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of a moment, time stops. For just a second, time stops. You're outside of time in that moment. And in that moment, my thoughts are, I'm looking at his body. I know where to hit him to stun him or kill him. And at the same time, in that same outside of time moment, it hits me, get bigger than this and heal this guy. And for a split second in the back of my mind, a very even smaller second, I'm thinking, I think jiffy is the term. It's a tenth, a thousandth of a second or something. What went through my head was, really? Really? It would have been so much better just to knock him, whatever you had to do. But whatever it was. I was on the way to work, by the way. I had to go do this session with this woman. Let's not forget about her and her 48 pounds that she lost. So he's holding a gun at me. He said, you can go to hell. I said, yeah, if such a place exists. He went, hell, does it exist? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if hell exists. And he's walking away. And I'm walking, I can actually feel like the rage is leaving this guy. Because the one thing he didn't expect, the one thing he didn't calculate was me getting bigger than his situation. Not surrendering and becoming what he wanted me to be. And by doing that, he went on his way, whatever he was going to do. Neither one of us had bullet holes. Neither one of us were thrown into a third rail and electrocuted. I went uptown. I did this session. I got paid. I had something to eat. I went home. And then the human part kicked in about 5 hours later, and I was sitting there thinking, I should have taken his head, and this kind of stuff, because, the human part, you have to release the emotion sooner or later. But the reality is teaching the individual to rise up and become mightier than any situation they're involved in. And within that moment, you need to have them acknowledge, either consciously, but I also prefer very much subconsciously, the mighty inner hero, part of them, that knows no doubt, that knows no fear, that knows no limits. The part of them that's unlimited, the part of them that can save children from great danger like a fire, is rising up unbeatably in their favor to break them through. And here's really a key element that I've come up with in recent years. In ways both known and unknown to them. When I was a little boy, there was a prayer in church. It's still there, I think. Lord, protect us from things known and unknown to us. I love getting the subconscious mind to work on this stuff automatically, and therefore make the subconscious session work in hypnosis that I do become self-perpetuating. If you could have their mind automatically, subconsciously working, I know, double adverb. 3 people got the joke, thank you. If you can get their subconscious mind to automatically resolve the issue while they're awake, while they're asleep, even while they're dreaming at night, would that be something that would enhance the work you're doing with them and improve their life in turn, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you could get your subconscious mind to work for you automatically in ways very best for you, known and unknown to you, to break through in your life, would that be something?
Yeah.
Would that make the self-improvement issue work that you're doing in your own life and for other people self-perpetuating? The next phase of what hypnotists will be doing in clinical work, the next phase, in my opinion, of what most of us will be doing in other types of work we do, is getting their subconscious mind to work on this stuff in a way that's self-perpetuating. And therefore, this is stuff I put into every clinical session that I do. I have run into people who say to me things like, well, you do clinical work, why are you doing stage shows? Well, one feeds into the other. Well, what do you mean by that? I'll explain it to you. I use reinforcements that I've come up with while I've been doing stage shows, because at the end of every stage show, you have a moment where you can give them personal empowerment suggestions. So at the end of every show, at the end of every session that I do, I tell them they're going to feel absolutely great, like they've had a 9-hour nap and a 7-hour back rub. Is there anybody here that would not like to have a 9-hour nap and a 7-hour back rub? Like right now, you could just use that right. I can see by your face, you could just use that right this moment. I also put into every clinical session that I do towards the end a series of these reinforcements. Some of these are in my clinical books. Actually, they're both in my clinical. I have 2 books and they're in both. Every time they shake their head no, they're saying no to any and all adversity that ever stood in their way, realizing that the adversity has now been released into a past chapter of their life. They acknowledge it, they forgive it, release it, and move on, and smile at how powerful they are having shunted that into the past chapter of their life. I don't know if the word shunted is in my book, I just threw that in because there's a word we don't use too often. I like to occasionally throw a word into my life that I haven't used in a while, like gargantuan or in lieu of. You don't say that too often, you know. It would behoove you. My father used to love that one. Clean your room, you know. Every time they nod their head yes, they're saying yes in any conversation automatically, and every time they nod their head yes to a better way of life, a better empowerment, a better way of rising up to the top unbeatably, being free of smoking and cigarettes, becoming lighter, thinner, healthier, and better, free of chasing cars. Is anybody paying attention for that joke? Okay? So consequently, how many times a day do we do this? Or do we do this? Like you're doing yes and no right now. If I said sleep really loud, you'd all fall down. Okay, so the reality is you can do that. So let's talk about another thing. Well, let me talk about another thing. You can remain quiet and listen if you'd like. The subconscious mind is capable of hearing 80 times faster than any human being has ever been clocked speaking, including me, which I find astounding. So if I go to hypnotize somebody, I can give them what might take somebody else a half hour's worth of suggestions sometimes in a few minutes, or a few seconds in some cases, because I have their mind automatically working on this stuff. It's also helpful if you're setting up some kind of a situation with self-perpetuation that you allow their subconscious mind to have happy and pleasant dreams that work this out to their best, most unlimited potential. And the reason for that is you don't want them having nightmares resolving these issues, right? I was telling somebody last night, or maybe earlier today, somebody said to me after a session years ago, a lady, how am I going to sleep after this hypnosis session? I said, you're going to do just great. You'll sleep just like a baby. She said, really? I said, yeah, you'll cry all night, wet the bed, and spit up milk. She said, that sounds, what? But the reality is that you want their mind automatically working this stuff out. Another thing to create self-perpetuation if you're instilling suggestions in a session to the subconscious mind. It depends where you live and what ingredients you put into this. Where I live, the whole world works to support you in this. Any sound, any noise, especially car horns, sirens, car alarms, barking dogs, planes flying by, the sounds of vague adult conversations off in the distance, children playing nearby outside, and ringing telephones of any type instantly reinforce all of this newfound freedom. Does that require any effort on their part? Look at my head for a clue. Can you hear those noises even when you're sleeping? Yes. So consequently, whatever you throw into the mix on that level will also instill personal empowerment, but yet on a self-perpetuating basis. Another issue in empowerment work that I do, their subconscious mind does not need to know, let's put it this way, excuse me, their conscious mind does not need to know where the issue came from. Now, from a therapeutic point of view, in most therapy training, most clinical therapy training, you're going to get people wanting to find out where the issue came from. We need to know. I've presented this to psychiatrists at conferences. I've presented this to psychologists, social workers, psychiatric social workers. The list goes on from there. And I've only had one guy teaching this principle who raised his hand. He was this old man hypnotist from Long Island, New York. I want to know where the problem came from. Why? I just want to know. And this went on for a little while. When they're in trance, if you hypnotize them deeply, and in a trance state, if you get them to nod their head yes in agreement, what is nodding their head? A, the conscious mind, or B, the subconscious mind? What?
Subconscious.
There you go. But there's a cookie over there, we'll give you one. You win. Okay. All right. But the reality is this. The subconscious mind is doing the forgiveness work. So, if the subconscious mind is nodding their head yes, that they are willing to resolve, release, forgive, move away from, heal, become mightier than, rise up beyond, whatever it is, the issue that's been presenting itself in ways known and unknown to them, are they more likely to release it since it's 94% of what they're doing than the other 6% you would be dealing with on a conscious level, doing a more verbal, more standard practice, clinical, therapeutic model of a session? Right, so we're all nodding our heads. We have a bunch of people, I got the whole room doing bobbleheads in the back of a car window now. We're all just, good. Means you're getting it. I like that. So the reality is when they're in trance, get them to nod their head yes, that they are forgiving, healing, releasing, becoming mightier than, moving on from, beginning a brand new, unbeatable, better, brighter chapter of their life. And when they're nodding their head yes, every time in the future, they're re-agreeing to that and re-empowering themselves. Here's the thing. Say a trauma took place in their life at 12:15 on a Tuesday 28 years ago. But the closest they're ever going to come to you is not 12:15. They're going to tell you about 12:16, 12:17. They're going to talk about the aftermath, but they're not going to talk about the actual traumatizing event. It's too traumatizing, right? Consequently, if it's too traumatizing, you could be mucking around in back rooms in their head for the next 30, 40, 50 years and never get to that 12:15 because it's too painful to go there. It's too messed up. It's too smelly, whatever it might be. But if you get their subconscious to forgive it, release it, heal it, move on regardless because they're now mightier than the situation around them, you've done your job. You've moved them along. And then you get a reputation as being this amazing, transformative person who helps people heal their lives and move on. You don't necessarily need to know where the trauma came from. The idea is to release it, heal it, forgive it, become mightier than it, be polished by it, stronger, brighter, better, more adaptive and fluid, and then move on from it. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Insights? I always swore I wouldn't be doing my sophomore year of high school math teacher comments, questions, difficulties. Mr. Caffrey. Was that Mr. Polanski? One of them. I forget which one it was. But those are the correct names. That was pretty good. So the idea with personal empowerment is to activate their inner hero to get up and do the work automatically, self-perpetuatingly. Have their mind cook up strategies and solutions in ways known and unknown to them is another approach. The mighty inner hero aspect of you is now creating, generating strategies, solutions, ideas, adaptations. I love adaptations so much when I'm working with people in ways known and unknown to them to resolve any and all of this. So say they cook up 5, 7, 10 different motivational ideas to improve something that's been an issue in the past, to release it, forgive it, heal it, move on from it. If you give the word adaptation in there, what will happen is this. Say strategy, solution, whatever it is, combination 1 and 7 are now resolved. Because maybe you've made a recording for them, they're practicing self-hypnosis, they're doing other models of things that you've taught them, other things along that line. Then they no longer need 1 and 7, right? They're done. But if you give them the idea of self-perpetuation and adaptation, number 1 and number 7 will be a new set of number 1 and number 7 the next time they play a recording you've made for them as a self-hypnosis tool. You getting all this? Okay. Say 2 and 8 need a course correction. 3 degrees to the right, 10 degrees to the left, whatever it might be. And you notice I did that facing you, not me. That was stage show work, okay. Consequently, their brain will make that automatic course correction. Their subconscious will do the work for them. Instead of them struggling with, I have to do this, I have to do these different things, the brain will start to work this stuff out for them subconsciously. Their mind will get it done. And therefore, their life just seems to be improved. Now, doing the work that I do, I've often told people, and this is, people say to me, these stories true, who could make this up? I'd have to be the world's best liar. I'm not that good a liar. That's one of my shortfalls. I'm not a great liar, okay? Which I think is a good thing. Sometimes the stars in the universe are in a weird alignment. Sometimes there's an echo of the previous week. So about 12 years ago, I think, maybe 13, I had 3 people from the previous week call up because I had done deep trance hypnosis work with them, and they weren't quite too sure that the process was working. The first was a lady who called me up from the previous week, and it's just a strange thing that all these people from the previous week called me the following week, but it's what happened. Lady calls me up and she says, I'm not sure this session's working, call me back. And this is phone tag. This is 7 or 8 phone calls back and forth. Her issue was she ate cake, and she had a weight issue. And when she called up and I did some of the, the intake on the phone, I said, well, what do you mean you're eating cake? And she said to me, I mean like a slice? Oh, no. I get off at the train station, and there's a bakery there, and I buy a cake, and it serves 8 to 12. And I go home and I eat that from before, in lieu of dinner, and I lay in bed with acid reflux and curse my life. So I called her up. Finally, I got her on the phone, and I said, let me ask you a couple of questions. Are you still eating cake? She said, no, the strangest thing happened. I said, what's the strangest thing? I decided to drive down to the Jefferson Avenue train station. It's a great little train station. You park the car on this side, you run right up the stairs if it's raining, or it's going to rain later in the day, you park on the other side, and then you run right down the stairs and you get in your car. And then when I get in my car, I just drive home and I cook regular dinner because there's no bakery there. Wow. I love when the strangest thing happens. That's when I become Homer Simpson's boss. I'm like, excellent. I know that the subconscious is working out the issues. So she realized that she was no longer eating cake, she was eating regular food again. She's a happy woman, she lost weight. Click, we hang up with her. Guy calls me up for stress management from the previous week. Not sure if it's working, call me back. Get him on the phone. Let me ask you a couple of questions. When the boss is freaking out in your job and he's putting all the calls on your desk, are you still stressed out? Nope, taking that in stride. What about when everybody in the company has a question, they all call you up into her office? Nope, doing fine with that. How about when you're driving over the bridge into New Jersey or back and you're stuck in traffic? Nope, breezing through that. What about when you walk through the front door and the wife and kids are screaming, I'm telling Daddy what you did, and it's, I'm good, no, don't, whatever it is. No, wow. Subconscious improvement is always not noticed, sometimes not noticed by the conscious mind. It seems like that's the way it's always been, but reality is a shift. My favorite, though, from the previous week, because I always save this one for last, but this is exactly the way it played out initially, is a woman calls me up. She came from 5 counties away from where I live. She's the relative of somebody I know who didn't want to work with her, so she sent her to me. And the woman needed to quit smoking. So she calls up and she leaves me a message, and she says, call me back, I'm not sure that the smoking program is working. So I called her back. I said, are you smoking? And she said, no. Okay. Do you want to smoke anything? She said, no. Oh, and the strangest thing happened. Excellent. I said, what's going on? She said, I decided to go to a different gas station. I'm thinking, where is this going? And it's a brand new Hess station. I don't know if you have them down here, but they have them up where I am. And it's freshly painted, and they've got this mini mart, and you can go in there and get a soda, and the gas is a little cheaper, and they're pumping it for me, and it's wonderful. And when I fill up the car for my sales job, as I do 3 days a week, unlike the old place, they don't bring me 2 packs of cigarettes every time I fill up like the other place used to do. Wow! That's what self-perpetuation is. That's the mind adapting to the situation. That's making improvements that a person trying to do that by sheer force of will alone would never normally accomplish. And that's how you do some sort of empowerment work in a session with people. There are a series of session reinforcements that I add, and a lot of this stuff is things that I've come up with over the years. The first one is strategies, solutions, adaptations. These are in my books, by the way. If you want, I will give you all business cards if you're interested in my book. I have a script book. The first one's all over the world. The second one's about 7 or 8 weeks old. The next one is the whole world working to support you. Sounds from outside, car horns, sirens, car alarms, barking dogs, planes flying by. You see, I've done this a little bit, like, I've hypnotized, 65,000 people or something? But not all at once. I get that in New York. Do you mean all at once? Yes, we filled at Madison Square Garden. It was a one-night only event. Okay. The next one is shaking your head no, and then shaking your head yes. Because you want them to say no first to the things that stood in their way, and you want them to say yes to the things that work. And every time they shake their head no or yes in the future, they're doing better and becoming mightier and whatever that is. The next session reinforcement they tend to put in has to do with their mighty inner hero. And this is kind of what we were doing last night to a degree, and yesterday, or some of the stuff that I did when I came in here. Their mighty inner hero is rising up to the top unbeatably, reversing back upon itself everything and anything that ever once stood in their way, in the very best of ways, both known and unknown to them, for the rest of their lives. And the second part of it, because it's a martial arts thing, something negative comes in, you reverse it, you send the negative energy back to itself, that negative force destroys itself, and you're like happy and phoenix-like rising to the top over here. Okay? So, the idea with that is, their mighty inner hero is rising to the top unbeatably, reversing back upon itself everything and anything in ways known and unknown to them that ever once stood in their way. And as that negative energy destroys itself, they rise up better, brighter, shinier, as the masterpiece chapter of their life now begins, unbeatably. Does anybody here not want to have a masterpiece chapter of their life begin unbeatably? You don't? Oh no, you do. Okay. But these are things that the subconscious mind will grab onto and run down the block with. All right? And finally, which I use in stage shows and I also do in clinical work, is I use the color red and my funny red pen, which a lot of people will know that have seen my videos. If you watch my videos, you'll see the funny red pen. And every time they see the color red, it's brighter, sharper, clearer. It's jumping into their eyes and face. It makes them smile and laugh. And every time I personally show them the color red, or whenever appropriate. That's really critical, by the way. I had an ER nurse one time come in. I didn't want her laughing at blood in the ER, you know? That's just the funniest thing. Like, your leg is falling off. You know, you can't have that. But, well, maybe you could, but I don't think it would work too well. But basically, what I do is I get them, when appropriate, to laugh at the color red. I had a day trader come in one time, and apparently on the computer screen, some red button starts flashing, and she started laughing, and she missed the keyboard, missed the trade, and had to come back, and I had to take that down a notch. But, yeah. Well, you know, if it's going to happen, it usually happens to me. So I'm sure you feel the same way about your own lives. But the point of the matter is, when they see the color red, it's brighter, sharper, clearer, it makes them smile and laugh. And when appropriate, it takes away their stress, it empowers them, it reinforces all the session work that they do. And consequently, you are generating exactly what these people came to you for. Most people who come to you are looking for a brand new chapter of their life. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. They want a masterpiece chapter of their life, right? That's what they're coming for. They want this stuff to work better and more automatically, don't they? Yeah. Right? So, happy dreams guide their way into a better sleep. Another one I'm fond of throwing in occasionally, those are like some of the primary core ones, is that they are rising up unbeatably to face any and all challenges. And like a mighty river, this is good for visualization people, and like a mighty river flowing down the side of the stream, flowing down the side of a mountain stream on a spring day, they flow over, around, beyond, and through any and all obstacles to wherever they need to be. And like a big boulder in the middle of that stream, they are also polished by the experience. That's a good metaphor, and that goes back to things like NLP, and it goes back to things like Ericksonian hypnosis, and metaphor workshops and other things. So do you see how this is all coming together on multiple different levels? That you're anchoring things into these people's minds. You're shifting the paradigm in their heads. Oh yeah. Yes, I see. I'm getting time cues from the back. Either that or we're just making weird hand gestures. Okay, yes, I got it. Are there any questions?
Silently and secretly.
I see. Woo-woo. Okay. The reality is, when you're doing this stuff, I also put a lot of humor into my pre-talk. I also kid around with these people. If they identify with you as a person who's having some fun with them initially, I have met people in hypnosis work that come in and do things like I am a serious hypnotist. I can't even do this with a straight face. I am a serious hypnotist. You'll be seriously hypnotized. I'm very serious. Do not shatter my seriousness by laughing. There'll be no laughing. Stop it. Especially you. You know who you are. I've met other people, like I took a training class when I became an instructor years ago for one of the hypnosis organizations in 1996. Back in 1996. And he talked like Bill Murray in Caddyshack, this guy. It was embarrassing. He's like, hey, gophers are vermin. All right, take a deep breath there and laugh and relax and let yourself... And he talked like that normally. Then he was doing the induction the same way. And I was using my hypnosis voice. Take another deep breath. Relax. Oh, no, I wouldn't be doing that. I speak the way I normally do. Take a deep breath and another one. And I'm like, you got to get his maximum depth into the session. The deeper they go, potentially the better the results. Although I've had results with people who are light, but still, you want to get in there and do the job. No, I'm chasing gophers, whatever it was. I didn't know. I couldn't take work with the guy with a straight face. But he was the serious hypnotist. Oh no, I'm very serious. There's no joking. Do you think they have too much seriousness partially in their lives? That's why they're there to talk to you. Their lives are way too serious. So joke around with them, kid around with them. I want to do the hypnosis. I'm not joking. That's like really deep trance work. But when you actually get to a point when you're going to put these people into hypnosis, give them things like what I gave you. I'm not trying to sell you my book, but if you're interested, it's on my website. The website is trance-master.com, much like my shirt says, or any of the other 85 domain names that I couldn't put down the list that I own, trance-master.com. And I have 2 script books with a lot of these techniques in there and a lot more stuff. And some people use it word by word, and some people take it and adapt it to whatever they're doing, and some people just get inspired by it. I've had others that weren't hypnotists who bought the book and just read the scripts in session, because everybody, to a greater or lesser extent, is in their own trance state on a regular basis. If you have kids, go clean your room. All right? Or if you're married, come on, we have to leave. The TV's on. That's hypnosis too. Are there any questions? Because I was getting finger signals a few minutes ago. Any questions at all? If you can, whenever possible, work on the idea of self-perpetuation in your work and automatic reinforcement, automatic self-adjustment. When I was a kid, they used to have TV commercials. Look, no muss, no fuss. I like no muss, no fuss. I like when people call me up and say, the strangest thing happened. Excellent. Because when the strangest thing happens, that's when the improvement takes place. You guys are great. I look forward to hypnotizing some of you later, and thank you.